Primeira vez no Brasil, então, primeira vez no Rio, resolveu passar esse decorado também. Então, o professor Talasek, ele é o diretor de programas culturais da nação. Trabalha com as instituições. Criador e moderador chamado que é um Academy of Science, e ele organiza também um salão em Austin, no Texas. Então ele está sempre ligando artes visuais e ciência, né? Tutor de arte para o Science and Technology, Issues in Science and Technology Magazine, uma publicação também conjunta da Nacionais dos Estados Unidos e da Academia dos Estados Unidos, e é também o consultor de arte e design, conferência de NAFC de 2015, e também para a Irvine, no Canadá. Então, o chair foi o chair de 2016, da Leonardo, revista Leonardo, que é a revista de arte muito importante. E mas ele veio nos visitar, conseguimos montar essa jornada que vai durar o dia todo de conversas sobre ciência e arte. Então, ele vai nos brindar com essa toda em inglês. Eu espero que vocês compreendam bem. A dúvida, a gente faz alguma pequena tradução se for necessário. So, thank you, John, for coming. Many, many thanks. I hope that it's the first of many visits that we can exchange, and they are happy to receive, and we are happy to receive you. Thank you.
It is a pleasure to be here. I'm going to deliver this talk in Portuguese, but my Portuguese does not exist. It's not only not bad, it doesn't exist at all. So thank you for indulging me. So back home, today is a holiday, it's Thanksgiving, and it's a day of gratitude, and I just want to express my gratitude for being allowed to be here with you and in this discussion to discuss something that I'm very excited about, the intersection of art and science. I'd like to start by playing a short video from the National Academies. I don't know if you have knowledge of what the National Academy of Sciences is, but this will give you a little bit of a frame of what the Academy does, and then it'll provide a context for what I'm going to talk about with arts at the Academy. Hopefully this will work.
Is this the 21st century? If we think of the great challenges that lay before us, things like food, energy, climate, health, we need to bring the greatest that the people in the service. And so the role of informed scientific policy is greater.
Given these challenges, it's important someplace they can turn for authoritative unbiased scientific advice from experts who only speak the truth based on uncompromising evidence. The mission of academies of sciences, engineering, and medicine is for the nation. It was founded during the darkest days of the Civil War. Lincoln and Congress needed scientists and engineers on their side to both win the war and to secure economic prosperity and health of the young nation.
These are the most celebrated scientists within every scientific field, who are tasked with only one thing: to advise the executive Congress of all ways the progress of science can impact policy and law for the betterment of the country. That's a gift to these United States of America.
Over the history of the National Academies of Sciences and Engineering, responsible for hundreds of reports every year that have touched so many parts of our lives, from the National Park Service, repairs to the fact that diseases have been all but eradicated. The output of the National Academies is staggering.
So to work every day is much to institution exists for the better humanity and for our society. This video, 2 reasons to give you the context of the cultural programs. On one hand, videos of public relations, videos talking about the history and work of the academies, and to emphasize the importance of science, engineering, society. But point out the other required video. The photographers, the videography, the ability to build a narrative. The music and excites, typically credited to those in the arts and humanities. The second reason to use this video as a platform for potential of art more and public relations. The end on that video was volunteers, engineering medicine as agents of change for the frontiers of how. I guess the question that I'd like to ask is, what is the role that artists and scientists play? How can we utilize thought leaders from around various investigations gathered from artists to scientists to composers, engineers, medical practitioners, and performers. And at this gathering, the Assistant Secretary General of the United Nations spoke. He spoke of the challenges facing the world: climate change, food and water availability, cybersecurity, and powerful line. The future of the world is learning to be better. The statement in the context of World Frontiers Forum, where thought leaders from all disciplines gathered, for us to use all of the tools in our toolbox, improving our futures in our society. We have deep knowledge, but often lack the ability to apply it effectively. The impact of this type that we need to consider are: can integrating art and science make us better informed? Can integrating art, science, spark creation and discovery by providing unique perspectives. So when talking about the history of integration art science, the most cited exemplar is that of Leonardo da Vinci. Science and engineering were not separated, siloed, and practiced in his time, of course, the same way that they are today. The way the disciplines interact in contemporary times, both mindfully and as a byproduct, I think it might be useful to consider an exemplar closer to our own time period. Personal connection to this image. It was taken by the Lunar Orbiter 1, and it is one of the first images taken of the Earth from the vicinity of the Moon. It was taken in 1966, a little bit over 50 years ago, and just a few months before I was born, so it's very personal to me. The reason it feels like it's important is because it reflects the time period that I grew up in. It was a time of great political anxiety, but also a time of great hope and exploration. Computers were just about to change the world and change our lives, and we had no idea to what extent. The dream of space travel was real and sparked our collective imagination. Like this changed our perspective of ourselves, our relationship to the world we inhabited, the way our disciplines were developing, and the way that we related to each other. We knew for the world wasn't flat, but the power of a photographic image to shift our identity itself was transformative. And it allowed us to dream collectively of new frontiers. Transformation take place. Consider for a moment the many disciplines, practices, and cultural mechanisms involved in paradigm shift, a literal constellation of perspectives and experiences. Certainly, science and engineering provided the driving force, giving us practical tools that led us into space. But science fiction writers helped us imagine space travel way before it was possible. The imaging professionals, the photographers, the camera engineers contributed to taking the photographs of Earth that we saw. Consider also the various media outlets that distributed this image and others like it, the newspaper, Life magazine, and other for social media. They connected the work being done to the general public, thus creating a platform for dialogue and sparking our imagination. The shift of the perspective of the world from above influenced artists such as Robert Smithson. In ourselves, we inhabit from a different perspective, such as Spiral Jetty. Now, this iconic art has been much noted that our experience has been through photography, the image from above, that somebody who is visiting would not have. So ideals that move and transform our societies and culture in any one discipline on lives of their own. The excitement of technology and engineering 50 years ago, reimagination of just anyone. Generated by led to the formation of his Undergraduate Academy of Sciences that occurred in the 1960s. But so did the formation of a publication called Leonardo's International Society of Art, Science, and Technology, which acted to the work who were working in the area between the silos. Enthusiasm around advances in engineering and technology, culture, and there were a number of major happenings that brought artists into dialogue, scientists, art projects such as experiments in art technology, or EAT 1090 by business with engineers from and counting such a similar connecting artists with scientists from another. in the exhibit Cybernet eventually toured the U.S. It's a computer in an exhibit that creative criteria. These efforts probably poor response at the time, but yet groups continued to document it, sort of try to put the conversation. It kind of died down. But over the past, I'd say about 10 years or so, there seems to be resurgence between art, design, and the disciplines of science and medicine. Like 50 years ago, we again see political anxiety. There are great challenges that no one's going to be able to solve alone. Internet and another we were 50 years ago, and we know what each other is doing in different silos more effectively than we did back then. We also see a development towards team science and citizen artists, the change in research and art practice that is growing needs of our times. So research practices are being transformed. Scientists to teams to produce breakthrough theories and validated solutions. 90% of publishing papers today are used by teams, 50% 50 years ago. Because diverse skills are needed to achieve meaningful results for the key problems of our times. Community safety, energy sustainability, environmental preservation. For us today is what is the role of art designers? Perhaps art technology collaborations from 50 years ago were before their time. Groundwork for current integrative dialogues between different epistemologies, ranging from artist residencies in science or artist residencies, integrative learning within traditional universities. There are a number of indicators that I'm looking at that show this growing dialogue between the disciplines. I'll mention one is a growing Leonardo's, which piece wonder, which is the same type of thing. They started 8 years ago. Leonardo Rendezvous. 8 years ago, in San Francisco. We started them at the Academy. The network of art science salons have grown nationally, not all of which are indicated there. I think there's even one still. Talk about a little bit later. The idea is really simple. Communities gather on a regular basis to hear creative practitioners and other disciplines to share work across disciplinaries. Salons provide both a snapshot of what is happening in the specific regions for communication and to learn how to listen to other speech community dialogue. The thing to me is that even though it makes these, they've never promoted them. They've always been promoted from a more organic, that a community is aware that they need to have these types of conversations, and then they come with us to how to start now, become part of the larger network. Another indication of mass is that the National Academy of Sciences has taken an interest. Currently, the Academy's Board on Higher Education and Workforce generating a report that looks at the question of integration between and arts and communication. So it's due out for the year. It's not out yet. I can't really much about because they haven't been released. But I can talk a little questions and the types of integration. The questions that they're looking at is how can cross-disciplinary exchanges challenge perspectives in such a way that it promotes creativity and innovation and discovery in all areas. An example of this is Don Ingber, who is a cell biologist from Harvard Medical School and Children's Hospital, right? One day he saw a piece of modern sculpture by Kenneth Nelson's Needle Tower, which is at the Hirshhorn Museum in DC. System of pipes held together by tension wires, so they look sort of defying gravity. They're just sort of floating out there. But seeing the nature of the tension-bound rod made Don sort of question molecular cells, and it just in thinking that has altered the way that biologists think about cells shifting to interpret raised is, can integration of art and humanities with STEM disciplines create better citizens? Democracy can't exist without education. Integrative learning produces better, well-rounded that can be in service to our communities. Eco-science and art is an initiative in collaboration. Sciences at George Mason University under the direction of Chong-Woo An. Is a project between eco-art and art and knowledge, expertise in common pursuit of a and participate in a project-based learning approach aimed at developing innovative interdisciplinary education and scholarship. To raise awareness of critical stormwater issues for the Mason community by means of a year-long in which science collaborates with and design students to implement if you get the words, the limb solution profit organization is 3D printing to bionics and affordable prosthetics. The organization grew out of work that the founding team did as City of Central Florida. According to the group's website, I think this is very you. The organization devoted their skills and passion around them. They believe that no family should have to pay for their children to receive an arm. By example, and encourage communities. So I want to just play a list of work me. We're not going to get what else to do now. We know that this is my computer because it keeps going back to it's just these.
Just go down here. We're looking for 912.
Hey, Alex, how are you? Pleasure to meet you. I have another bionics expert on hand, so I thought I'd drop by.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's a pleasure. Nice bow tie, by the way.
Thanks.
How are your travels?
Very good.
Well, I thought I'd bring one of my gauntlets to and see if everything's copacetic. You want to have a look?
Sure.
Ready?
The same.
Actually, I think what do you say we both try them on, do a progress report?
Okay.
You know who that is?
Hi, man.
What's his name?
Robert.
Great. God, dude, it's even cooler than I thought. Which, as you can see, my light isn't working half the time. One of these, it winds up breaking on me. But what I do is I keep working on it, kind of like you're working on it with Albert.
He keeps working and working until he gets it right.
Yeah, I think yours is still a little bit more, at least, you know.
The lights work.
Ah, look at that, Dan. I broke you. I nailed it. Love it. Hey, good job, Albert. Thank you, sir. Yeah, appreciate it. Albert has made it so affordable. I'm probably going to start farming out a lot of my tech work to Albert too. I feel like he could cut the price point down on one of my suits, which right now is, I guess, about, I don't know, $1.5 billion.
Now it's a tricky story in the next video. Voila. You know, it's kind of a fun little example of that, but I think it's really shows it's not just the child, the community benefits, because it brings people together. The enthusiasm that Robert Downey Jr. had, and that he wanted to be a part of this. They came together in a different way. So, you know, basically the communities that do this work from the satisfaction of working together and being helpful going through this, but the funding, and they come together with technology, with the scope sort of, and plus this would be really cool to read Downey Jr. So this is my new best friend. What he's doing at the Academy, it's not one that I'm really going to develop, but the Academy actually has the science and exchange filmmakers together with scientists to improve. So just as coincidence, comics doesn't create a movie anymore without a consultant from the science community. And in fact, thank you. That's good. And in fact, Neil deGrasse Tyson, the first movie was introduced to that created the you know, the Academy is actually as interesting as these ranges in very different ways. So another one, before we get too far off, is this group called developed by the MIT Media Lab in collaboration with Microsoft Research. It's a wearable technology that enables the user to create customized functions that can be attached directly to the skin. So using gold metal leaf, a material that is fairly cheap and skin friendly and robust for everyday wear. Duos from the found in metallic jewelry, contemporary, and to create on-skin devices. Devices enable users to control their mobile services or their mobile devices display information on their skin while also serving as a personal fashion. Another example, the type of integration is Melissa Walker, who's depicted here on the left. She's a creative art therapist at the National Intrepid Center of Excellence at the Walter Reed National Military Medical Center. She works with active duty service members suffering from traumatic brain injury, health conditions. They service their deep thoughts and emotion in creative environments. Melissa, this artist health program back in 2010, where she engages her patients in making these masks that are depicted here on the right, which is a powerful mechanism for helping them express their invisible wounds. Along the same line of creative solutions in healthcare, when an epidemic caused the Ebola virus, it was ravishing Western Africa in 2014 through 2016. The STEM disciplines, of course, were critical in responding to the disease, but the arts and humanities also played a major role in responding to the epidemic. Popular songs, for example, were broadcast widely on the radio that taught people how to avoid getting infected. Interdisciplinary teams protective suits for healthcare workers that were Los Angeles-based professor and artist depicted here on the left, Mary Beth Heffernan, who agree with her cameras and printers and began attaching photographs of healthcare workers to the fronts of their protective suits. The patients that they were treating would be less alarmed from this sort of impersonal clad medics. Arts and humanities in responding to the epidemic reflects a much more general observation. The arts and humanities partners in STEM. Working on the academies hosted a 14-year old experiment called the National Academies Futures Initiative. It's an annual gathering of people from diverse disciplines to form think tanks and to tackle grand challenges and to generate seed ideas for addressing those issues. 15 began to invite artists and designers to join these think tanks. I'll share with you a couple of the examples that have come out of that and are still in process. The first example contains Brandon Ballinger. Brandon is a hybrid who is both trained in science, published, and an exhibiting artist. A growing number of creative practitioners are training in different areas in order to actually share ideals and their goals. Here we see this installation the National Academy of Sciences. It's the changing food of Mexico after the BP oil spill. Brandon there. His NACFE, the NACFE teams that he formed in collaboration with was called Crude Life, Art and Science in Mexico, Biodiversity, and an Oil Spill. This is an interdisciplinary art science project focusing on gathering endemic fishes at Gulf Spill in 2010. The project seeks to raise awareness of regional environment through community science, portable art museum of Gulf. I'm just going to read you the description. So one of the wonderful things, in a lot of areas in that part of our country that's only accessible by boat, and they don't have very good or educational systems. So in a lot of ways, the kids that are exposed to these portable museums have probably never been into a museum before. In fact, I know that there's 2 microscopes that travel with this exhibit. The kids and see what it was. So, taking the museum, taking the education. So let me just read you the description of the project. The 2010 industrial petrochemical and because the spill occurred in deep sea has been difficult to assess. Mexico, biologically diverse marine environments in the world, with new species being described every year. Long-term impact and the potential recovery of these species post-spill understood. Much of the human populace, as I mentioned, of coastal Louisiana depends on the Gulf, whether through the fishing industry, the oil industry itself, and our biodiversity of complex impacts they have had. The impact to or from the spill as well. They provide vital science, which perform they're performing field surveys in Louisiana and listing Gulf residents and citizens monitoring collect species. So as they're doing this, they may set up on fishing piers, and they have sort of a most wanted poster that they give out to fishermen that have several of the species that they haven't seen since the oil spill. They'll give it to species and then have a contact information that if somebody out on the boat identifies something, they can actually call it in and list it as sort of a citizen science survey. And as I mentioned, they created these portable art science museums, which are basically like cabinets of curiosity, from up in these could be libraries, could be on fishing piers, but they're also using them to travel around to various conferences to kind of raise the awareness of how this type of interaction could be helpful. So this is one of the more recent installations that we did at the National Academies, which then we California. You can see they're just fantastic little cabinets of curiosity. Another project enacted a couple of we hosted this exhibit as by Canadian architect Philip Beasley and his cross-disciplinary collaborative called the Living Architecture Group. In creating an immersive, interactive installation, they created a platform for imagining about future architecture. Future buildings begin to know and hear about us in terms of AI and responsive architecture, or possibly even. I'm just going to show you a brief little video.
Within the National Academy of Science in DC, explores a revolutionary new kind of building. Questions about how architecture might behave in the future. Buildings begin to know and care about it. They start in very primitive ways to become alive. The Systems Group, or is transforming the future of buildings and cities through the integration of living and near-living technology environment. LASG is developing environments like the sentient chamber, respond, grow themselves, and are adaptive and empathic towards their inhabitants. A prototype of LASG's work, Sentient Chamber acts as a test bed for ongoing research that combines the disciplines of architecture, art, computer science, engineering, and synthetic biology. The work is also a responsive installation that interests in an effort to explore ability and artificial intelligence in human machine. Sentient Chamber is composed of thermal laser cut acrylic that provides substantial strength and flexibility to its structure, with minimal material consumption while providing the work electronic controls that use powerful microcontrollers and custom circuitry of embedded sensors. These electronic systems offer interactions with viewers that include spatially imaged light, vibration, and kinetics. In the installation's interaction software is a new curiosity-based learning algorithm. Using artificial intelligence, the algorithm allows the installation and audience in time. In this test, we can see the interactive system cycle through various responses as it attempts to learn how best to engage its new visitor. Or its response begin to emerge between the environment and the audience to move beyond pre-planned behavior patterns. These changes suggest to the audience a certain intelligent phenomena. They sense this kind of curious and evolving relationship offers new paths for designing living spaces that can adapt to our individual and create personal with occupants. She continues to explore how these technologies can directly serve our built spaces and the individuals who will environments.
So, this sort of wonderful down to the but we the anchor by Philip that incorporated students and design students and art students from about 4 DC area colleges. They 18 buildings. It became a very sort of integrative learning. So the operations that designed it, and then the teams of students who became informed through the process of doing the installation. How this fits into the next build process is installation, educating and informing the next iteration of his work. This installation became a jumping off point development, transforming architecture by coupling human neurology to interactive responsive building environment. The collaboration between Philip's team formed with neuroscientist Mark Cohen, who offered expertise modeling human neurology. Their project description: thoughtful mimicry is a means towards understanding. Explore sensation, behavior, and perception by developing biomimetic and neuromimetic architectural environments that can interact purposefully and emotionally. These emerging light on current understanding of human and animal neural systems. Mark Cohen's and Beasley's work as an architecture form our conceptions of built environment. The experimental research creation program has profound implications by developing practical methods for coupling human consciousness with tomorrow's buildings. A new generation of architects and scientists can be equipped with essential skills and sensitive judgment for working with the potency of intelligent program, address key challenges, intelligent environments with empathy, ensure that rapidly emerging interactive environments and satisfying. Practicals in exchange for prototypes and test beds, such as this one, trial applications of software and testing. Both Beasley and Cohen explore the coupling of actual environments with neural responses tools that inhabit them. Researchers examine how arts might be sentient, how they might influence human consciousness behind these responses, and in turn, the control system environments might be responding with human. So, in conclusion, I'd like to say that I think we are living in times. Yes, there are challenges socially, politically, economically, but we also have amazing tools like we've never had before. And as the UN Assistant Attorney General said, at the beginning, the key will be finding innovative ways of applying our earned knowledge together in conversation and the humanities through collaboration and dialogue to address these challenges and to actualize a world that we want to live in. Artists tend to do. I'd like to leave you with a few more questions than answers, if you don't mind.
Questions of the future that we haven't even thought of yet. We've lost the ability to dream big. How do big ideas get translated into reality? How do we prepare our students to actualize their ideas? What is effective integration science like? How is the cultural impact of innovation? Can we design courses into both science and theater inform one another? Where does inspiration come from? Can artists help us to be more resilient to times of crisis? Can artists help us understand data in a more meaningful, the driving force?
So thank you. Time for, because I'm hearing, understanding what's going on here in Brazil. This is, of course, what's for the world. I'd like to know what's happening.
We have 30 to 60 minutes to discuss. Está aberta, quem quer falar?
I must have explained everything so
Se
completely.
precisar, a gente traduz de português para o inglês. Peço ajuda aqui aos meus colaboradores.
I didn't realize, Brian.
Vamos lá. Apresente.
My name is Victor. I'll try to make a question in English.
Thank you.
I am a music therapist, and I would like to know into the art and humanity. I'd like to know more about that the artist can scientific way of view, and how do you think this collaboration could be more meaningful?
That's a great question. For a music therapist, yeah. This is when we look at the very that art and great with one another. It's a very sort of statement, and there is a lot of implications for well-being. I think one of the things that we've let go of, or that we is bringing our institution, thinking about, like how does this benefit? How does it music? How does it benefit art? This is kind of reinforcing siloed thinking. You know what I'm saying when I say siloed, disciplinary. The ideal that I think serves us best is when focusing on what the goal is. In this case, and innovation better. It may or may not be better music. It may or may not contribute to better healthcare. But the is that you have different together service to the other, that you're trying to work together as a team to serve better. What is your dealing with in this successes?
I work with use therapies as a tool to make relation and to help system.
Right, because it's like it's people's sort of traditional linear ways through maybe even dance and movement could be as well that I heard people and the exemplars that I did not show here is a wonderful choreographer by the name of Liz Lerman, who healing war, basically talking about the act of war and sort of the way through that sort of pain. Good. Any other thoughts?
Meu nome é Jaqueline e eu vou falar em português, porque é difícil para mim. Então, se puder, ajuda, por favor. Arte é na medicina. Eu estava quase chorando aqui quando história e o programa que é a ciência tem tecnologia e ele tem alguma ligação com she knows about the program, STEAM program in the US, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. So medicine has something to do with this or something about the program.
Good. I am so sorry that I don't know your beautiful language. I really could communicate. Maybe another trip. I'll come back. Yeah. So, okay. Yeah. Because I kind of avoided using the acronyms. I'm familiar with how our politics to years, but movement, science, technology, engineering, and medicine, STEM, that started kind of coming up in policy making circles. And then there was a movement to add art into that, making it STEAM, technology, engineering, art, and either math or medicine, and sometimes it's STEAM with a square over the M. Back into what I was talking about is like we just start talking more and more about the different disciplines. Is a sort of terror of, and then everybody likes the issue with one another until you make money, and then everybody's like, great idea, and that's not the way that we've done it in the past. But as I was mentioning beforehand, the ideal of innovation, not doing things done before. If you're going to stick with just the way you do, you're never. And we have new problems. The 21st century world, fellows were created. The report that I'm integrating STEM disciplines with art and humanities is very what I think you're asking about. So do I have specific questions contributing to the report in some way? Specific questions about STEM or the STEM movement? I'd be very interested here how these conversations are being translated here.
Your position as cultural program director is able to student
in this way?
Evidence K through 12, school levels report is looking at is sort of the integrative learning higher education. So it's not only in, which is what that is referring to in the educational system, but also, as we saw in some of the examples, how is it advancing research? Also, part of my background is in museum practices, so I'm very interested in sort of integrative learning opportunities are created in formal learning environments as opposed to formal educational things. Joao took me to the Museum of Tomorrow and got to visit with some of the people there. And I'm exciting to come here and see that sort of interaction is coming about. And sort of in the same vein as Philippines, they were working on an exhibit about wearable technologies and sort of systems. So I think even in the sort of formal areas, you're kind of that exposure. So I was very excited to come here and see how innovative that is. If you like, take it back to the U.S. or either learn Portuguese.
Hello, I'm a medical doctor and clinical research, and involved with health education now and body image. The lecture was really inspiring. One of the things that I thought I cannot on in Brazil. One of them I can tell you about. I just saw a video. A musician, Carlinhos Brown, helping a blind girl to see the moon. Things like that. Like one is from 2 years ago. I read about it. The first ever. And what is being done in the Gulf of Mexico, I don't know if anything like that is being done. Because it was really devastating. And I'm sure it's a huge skill. Mining jets were spilled down the whole river and came down to the sea, which has been affected by that. And so a program like that, a project like you showed from the Gulf of Mexico, would be very interesting to have there. I don't know.
Do you know if there's been? Do you know if there were any interactions with artists and communities that?
No idea.
Yeah.
No idea at all. I don't know if you have any like overseas. Do you know anything about the project that has a music extension?
Yeah, I mean, this sort of NACFI program is sort of opportunities for individual think tanks. So unfortunately, that project is coming to a close. Just as they were starting to incorporate artists and scientists, the funding ended for it. Any sort of situation, but it's kind of important to realize that thing is not something, even though that it's still sort of questionable. Everybody's sort of like trying to figure out what the best practice is and kind of wanting to go through that. I do know that the Academy of Science in the U.S. and the Academy of Sciences here has had some past relationships, and it would be interesting in future introduce the into that mix. But specifically with Brandon's work, Brandon is one of those integrative people. He has a PhD in biology. He is published on amphibian deformities, and he has exhibited at major, museums around the world. So, bizarre home run to be such a sort of a critical thinker. But it's also just he's his own person. You could say that he's a scientist actually just really interested in environment and sort of our impact on it and its impact on us. And it sort of gets beyond that conversation of, is it art? It's more like from this. It really is helping to understand what the impact is in a very sort of moving forward sort of way. That's the thing that I found most powerful about that, is even though it's based upon the impact of the Gulf, it's not a sort of doom and gloom, heavy criticism as much as it is saying, look, this is just the impact. This is what we have. Obviously, it doesn't sort of take a grandstand. It just really delivers evidence. Kids are just fascinated. It's just the type of engagement these was just, no, I don't know that there's anything international that we're working on, but let's start something.
I think it's important just to promote reflection on the issues in young people and to think about it. I think that's important, how that impact that can affect any other in the future.
Right, exactly. And I mean, I think one of the things that we're guilty of in our culture, let's say, let's take any topic like climate change. That's a science issue. Scientists will take care of it. I'm going to go do what I need to do. And the nice thing about it really allows everybody to take an ownership. Somebody else, I can be a part of that. Whether artists or types of interactions. It really kind of allows all of us to agency and solve.
As yours.
Right, exactly. That's a nice way of putting it.
Okay. Minha pergunta está aqui.
Hi, I'm Rita. Talking about how can you integrate different and professional projects. Tell me about this challenge in your experience for us.
The impacts of,
yeah,
or the difficulties of it.
Yeah.
Very simple. I'm going to simplify. The first challenge is that when we are in our communities, we develop a way of talking, a way of speaking, almost as foreign language as it is between Portuguese and English. When you have a scientist and a biologist and an engineer, they have completely different language. The first thing is to ways of doing that. And you saw that I mentioned the art science salons. I can't really emphasize enough. That's your first step, is creating a space where different disciplines can come together. What if you met in this room a couple hours once a month or every other month, and you just had people that were on this campus who were interested, and then you had them talking with people that were interested in art and music therapy or something. Have to have a divert and just do it on a regular basis, and go out and have wine and cheese afterwards. Always having alcohol, always a good thing. This, these sort of integrations by becoming familiar with different sounds, different communities. And I got to tell you, that's probably the biggest roadblock, because really sort of, again, are people who really just don't understand it's possible. And that integration is possible depends upon your community, who's working in your community, and just getting them together to talk. Because then, together, it really is, they do kind of come together around, I feel, there's a problem that you're trying to find a solution to. And it could be, you know, bills or mining issues. It could also be, I mean, I don't want to diminish, I kind of geared this towards audience, but, you know, my background is in the arts. What is the benefit that the art community, other than you know, exhibiting a type of, you know, maybe it'll have impact in a different way that you've never thought of. So there's a lot of projects in integration linear life. They have, you know, it's like you don't have, okay, here's a problem, here's a solution, here's the outcome. You may have, you know, I'm just going to set this down for a second. You may have, you know, things coming together, but then you have this sort of multiple. It may create this like beautiful piece of music. It may help somebody heal. You know, it may be, you know, you have to start thinking about things in a linear way, whereas, you know, it's like I'm a scientist, I'm an artist, I'm coming together. It may have several things, an equal 50-50 split. It may have science, but then you've learned a tool that that's actually one of the difficulties in doing these sort of evaluations. You don't know exactly what the benefits are in 20 years. You know, it's like a who, as he sculpture that, how do you model where you get in, you know? So what we're really talking about is building places where we can inspire each other. Is that answer? Okay, good.
This link to do this. Okay.
Good morning.
I'm a teacher of chemistry. I want to know if the cinema as a possibility of art expression. What do you think is the contribution of cinema to discuss the limits developed and the possibility of the future, the science in the future, like science fiction?
Science fiction. Well, yeah, I mean, I think that's whether you're talking about literature or movies, they inspire us to dream. I mean, we first think about going to space. When did we first think of medical and chemical and biological things that we could create and do? I mean, to answer your first question, I do consider cinema to be a part of the arts. I don't have any sort of limitation. That's actually one of what is art and what is not art. Creative practice has a role in this, sort of including literature, dance, visual arts, all of these. As I mentioned, have the Science and Entertainment Exchange, which is really specifically about together create better narrative. Necessarily policing Hollywood. The science is accurate. The movie gave it away. They did little tiny thing. The love interest is a female in the movie. If you saw the movie, female love interest is a doctor. They just tested, and Hollywood thought it was a good idea. What if we how women in this tiny steps, but they influence. Imagine a young woman going to see that movie. Also, myself, not just in a supporting role, but as a scientist, a generator of in some way. Does that answer your question?
The limits of the science developed about the experts.
Ethics.
Ethics. Oh yes. Okay. Fantastic. Well, just because we had this, this wonderful experience, we do not just cinema but theater. There was this is kind of one way that we do it. We do a partnership of theatrical readings 2 or 3 times a year with the Shakespeare renowned theater group. They bring to us a proposal to do a theatrical reading of a play based on some sort of science. And a couple of weeks ago, we did a play called A Number Kill. This was written in 2012, and it was about cloning. So 2 actors. One actor plays the father, plays the son, clone of the son, and the clone of the son. So long play, and it's all of these like wonderful sort of subtle of what does technology, our identity, how do we perceive ourselves, and then who gets to decide and what's the impact? Because in the play they were kind of talking about the father clone that form generation, keeping your perspective fresh, allowing an artist in another discipline. If it's practical, then yeah, sure. To answer your question, I'm of the field of thought that disciplines may evolve out of this. You know, it's like I kind of pointed out, like 50 years ago, this kind of stuff started out. Nobody was really interested, so it fell apart. So why is it coming back around now? And are we talking about actually creating something, or is this just going to be a cycle that every half century we're going to have a kind of resurgence? We're going to learn from it. We're not going to be interested. We're going to go do something else. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah.
No, the second part of the question is come money for funding of art science projects from art or from science, or we'll have to.
Well, you see, now,
how do you bring together?
That's the rub, is that everybody likes the idea of a good cocktail party conversation about art and science until it has to be funded, and then nobody wants to give up their pot of gold, right? So the report that the Academy is doing, part of it's being funded by the National Endowment for the Arts and the National Endowment for the Humanities, and the problem has always been if it looks too much like science, then none of the art projects or none of the art funding. Vice versa, if it looks too much like science, you know, the science institutions won't fund it. They're not interested in it, I don't think. What it is nobody knows what success looks like. How do you fund something that's in it because you don't know what the correct? Actually, one of the reasons why these funding this report is that they're really for that sort of formula. You know, this knows what a good art project looks like. How to fund something that falls in between a little, you know, less risky. The National Academy's Tech Futures Initiative, when we started bringing in the art element, it's one of those unusual, funding sources where it says take chances. We matter of fact, they said if you succeed, then you're not innovative enough. So in other words, they expect a certain amount of failure, but that's not a common funding source. So so the voice of optimism is I think that the funding sources will, because it's becoming widespread enough and it's innovative enough to where, at least in the U.S., people are becoming is how do we fund these really interesting things that we really don't understand yet. First step. Now, I don't know what's happening here in Brazil. That opportunity
is to choose the committee.
Yes, exactly.
They are always disciplinary committees.
Well,
let's stop that.
Well, yes, because you mentioned Frankenstein.
Present yourself.
Sorry, I have to introduce myself. I'm terrible at introducing myself, but okay. My name is Lucy, and I work with science fiction. I moved when you mentioned time. Of course, it's like the founding stone of science fiction, right? I just thought now, because you mentioned the day graphic novel, there was this nurse, and now she's a doctor, so there is a kind of elevation, right? So with Frankenstein, thought first that it was being written by Shelley or Byron, and then it was after some years that it was due to her, right? But she wrote something in the preface, in the 31 preface. She wrote, "I bid my head to go forth and prosper." Talked about that foreshadowed that Frankenstein would become this kind of, myth it really all science fiction practically derived. But what I'm interested, I'm sorry, I'm like beating around, really interested is that maybe depict science as dystopian.
Right.
So, in the dystopian-utopian arena. And you know what? I think that all good science fiction, utopian, except, no, okay, I'm going to defend myself. Before the 19th century, you had utopias like, you know, Thomas More, etc. But then after the 19th century, when science developed technology, etc., science fiction was dystopian, except for a very few moments like the feminist utopias, you know. So my question really is, I'm going to get into my question now, okay? Do you think it is possible to write nowadays science fiction novel undertone? That's my question.
No, it's an amazing question because there's actually a group in the U.S. at Arizona State University that the idea was, my gosh, you know, science fiction writers are just making us, you know, sad, imagining it's just a world. And the president of Arizona State University in the elevator with Bruce Sterling, you know, a very well-known science fiction writer, actually said, help us imagine a future that we want to live in. It's like, why aren't you doing that? And that gave birth to a book project called Hieroglyph. And Hieroglyph is a book that was published out of Arizona State University, out of the office, and I love this office, the Imagination. Okay, so Arizona State University is one of those schools that has sort of, you know, collaboration, the future of society, the Department of New Media, Art, and Engineering, trying to put those lines and revise things. So that book is it's probably electronically available, unfortunately, just in English. Yeah, I guess the real question is,
Yes, I didn't interrupt you, but I was just thinking, because in order to produce literature, you must have a conflict, you know, like utopia nowadays. It's very complicated to happen. Everything is perfect.
Yeah.
It's complicated to imagine that. I don't know. I would like to read that book.
Well, I mean, I think I'd like for you to read it too, and I'd like for you to let me know if you think it's possible. Because I think what is, yeah, I mean, I get it. I mean, as a person who comes from a visual art standpoint, there's something about going to a museum. It's not taken seriously as artwork. If it has a humor, it has a harder time making it in the world. I don't know, but it's not. You know, it's not. In other words, anything that has a sense of humor isn't necessarily, you know, perceived in. So I guess my gut feeling to yours, to respond to yours, is it is possible to make, because it's not about whether it's just about. It really is vacant, you know, something that has an emerging sense of hope. Even, you know, life and recycle out, you know, the phoenix rising from the ashes or something like that. But, you know, I don't know. I think it really is the craft and the storytelling of the writer being a
Yes, but I think you're right in what you said, that the end now, because I can think of some phobias, touch of humor and a little hope at the end, you know, that so perhaps that's that.
Yeah,
I mean, not entirely.
The only thing that's going to save them is our being able to laugh at it, right? So,
yes. Thank you.
Good. Thank you.
Mas alguém quer falar? I think we can end this session and thanking again all of you gave us questions to sustain it.
Yeah, because the questions are more interesting than the discussion.
Yes, and we'll be happy if you can still in touch with us for the future. The future from right on. Ok, thank you very much. Pessoal, a gente retoma às 2 horas em onda sobre interação ciência e arte e as experiências do Rio de Janeiro. Vão ter 4 palestrantes da UF, da UFRJ e aqui da FUC. Muito obrigada. Tem um cafezinho. E a lista de presença, porque o evento dá certificado.